All right, here we go. Brand new Flyers Daily for St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. Happy St. Patty's Day to all my fellow Irishmen. Flyers Daily presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. Flyers Carnival coming up today. Unfortunate that it's not under better circumstances with the Flyers coming off a win or at least an overtime loss where they could have grabbed a point. They lose a little ground to the New York Islanders, who lost in overtime yesterday, and the Islanders grab a point. The Flyers do not in what was a wild game in Boston. Very an unanticipated third period, to say the least, after it went in tied at 2. Let's get to the particulars from this game. Let's talk about it. Let's break it down. Let's look at what happened, what needed to happen, what didn't happen, and the result of a 6-5 loss. Flyers get outshot in the game 30-29. They got hit in the game 36-35. Faceoffs were dead heat. Really even game by just those raw numbers, to say the least. The Flyers open the scoring at 4:18 into the first period. Real nice play from Yegor Zamola defending David Pastrnak at the Flyers' blue line on the left side. Is able to use that long reach, get the stick in there, cause the turnover, and then get it right up the ice to Garnet Hathaway, who goes in on a 2-on-1. Flyers off the rush in transition. That's what they've done really well this year. And Paling on the right side does a real good job of putting himself in a position that's not in line with the Boston Bruin defender, making him a very good option, one which eventually Garnet Hathaway would take. But Hathaway also shows enough shot that Jeremy Swayman cannot cheat to move over for the one-time shot from Paling. And because Hathaway does that, he lays a perfect pass to Paling across, and he one-times it, beats Jeremy Swayman. Flyers go up 1-0. It's Paling's 9th of the season. But at 15:51, Flyers give one up here, and a bit of a defensive mistake as Morgan Geekie with a slap shot just inside the top of the circle is able to beat it over the high blocker of Felix Sandstrom and get the game tied. This is a rush attempt. Couturier comes off the bench as they're coming up the ice 2-on-2, basically, and then Couturier kind of makes it 2.5 because he's not defending the play straight, but he is trailing it and almost parallel with it. And as Jake DeBrusk drops that puck off to Morgan Geekie, as DeBrusk is kind of driving the middle, the lefty in this situation, Mark Stahl, decides to jam Jake DeBrusk. But he had help already there. His partner, his right side partner, was there to take DeBrusk as he drives the net. Therefore, again, like we talked about in the last game, on the Austin Matthews goal, redundancy guarding one man, and it leaves Morgan Geekie all the time and space to move down low below the top of the circle and absolutely just load up a clapper and beat Felix Sandstrom. So a mistake there. 1-1, the score after one period of play. Pick it up in the second. Flyers regain the lead. Just after a power play had ended, really good-looking power play at the end of the first period where they didn't score, and then this power play where eventually they do score right as it ends. But at 12:01, Joel Farabee, just roaming across the front of the net, is able to deflect a puck from Cam York down and beat Jeremy Swayman. Owen Tippett picks up an assist, as does Cam York. It's kind of what I call a diet power play goal. The power play had expired, but the Bruin player had not gotten back into the play. It's still kind of a 5-on-4 goal. It doesn't get listed as such, but Joel Farabee equals a career high with 20 goals. And Farabee, if you recall, scored 20 goals in that after the shortened season from the pandemic. The next shortened season, the 56-game season, he scored 20 goals that year. So he matches that here this season, and the Flyers regain the lead. But then at 15:22, the team you say could not put on the power play. Very lethal power play when you've got a guy like David Pastrnak who leads the NHL going into the game with 330 shots on goal. But Charlie Coyle on the back door is able to tap one in off a nice feed from Brad Marchand. Kind of comes off the draw, and a bit of a pick play by accident, but it's two Flyers that collide as Mark Stahl kind of jumps to the middle as the left side D to support the faceoff. It then, as the puck moves to the other side of the ice, the left side, he collides with Travis Konechny and loses an edge, and he's out of the play. And that gives Marchand the time and space to be able to lay a beautiful backhand over, and Coyle ends up potting it, and it's 2-2. So we head to the third period with the game tied. Just 108 into the third, Charlie Coyle picks up his second goal of the game, makes it 3-2 Boston. And then at 3:45, Johnny Beecher is able to beat Felix Sandstrom, and it makes it 4-2. And then just on the very next shift, Jake DeBrusk is able to get one to make it 5-2. Now the Flyers down 3, less than 5 minutes into the period, where you went into the third tied. So you're thinking, okay, the wheels are off the wagon here. This game's over. Flyers kind of calmed things down, got some decent looks on Jeremy Swayman. Then eventually at 14-12, it was Nick Deslauriers. To say you got a goal from an unlikely source would be an understatement. I think his first in 68 games, first of the season, and that makes it 5-3. And you're thinking, that goal, that's just a kind of a footnote in this game. It doesn't mean anything. The Flyers got going after that. A minute two later, they pick up another goal at 15-14. This time it's Morgan Frost, his 11th goal of the season, and you may not see a prettier one this year other than maybe the Owen Tippett spinorama. But on this goal for Morgan Frost, Cam York gets the puck to Tippett. Tippett drives into the zone and kind of moves to the middle of the ice. And as he does that, Frost leaks right through the two defenders of Boston. And he doesn't just leak through. He then shifts his body to almost face Tippett and put his back to Jeremy Swayman, opening himself up for a little threaded pass, which Tippett makes. And then Frost turns his around and is able to dangle it through his legs and go high blocker on Jeremy Swayman. Unbelievable goal. It's one of those ones, I will tell you, that annoy goalies in practice, because usually you go, those kind of moves are reserved for practice only. You'll never get to do it in a game. But Frost pulls it off, and just unbelievable finish by him, shows the skill and the just sheer creativity in his mind to do that at full speed in a game. And you look at that play and you go, man, now the team is juiced. They're back within a goal, 15-14 to go. There's still time on the clock, 4:46 to go. And they can push here and maybe get this game tied, go to overtime and see what happens, grab at least a point. But then at 17:01, the backbreaker, the Danton Heinen goal, his 13th of the season. Flyers are applying really good pressure in the Boston zone, and it goes the other way. Danton Heinen's kind of at the end of his shift. The rest of his line mates decided to change. He goes up the left side, and he's looking for the late guys to come and somebody to drop it off to. He sees they're not there because they're changing, and he decides, I'll just fire this into the net, and I'll probably peel off and go back and get a line change so we can go back to defending after the Flyers get the puck and come the other way. But it ends up going high glove and beating Felix Sandstrom. And it makes it 6-4. And it's one of those goals that Felix Sandstrom just can't give up that goal. It's a clear-sighted shot. There's no other option for Danton Heinen, nowhere for him to go. So he can take ice, make himself big, and make that save rather easily. He's a little too deep in his net, and Heinen ends up beating him. And that puts the Flyers down 2 again, 6-4. At 17:01, so only 2 minutes and 59 seconds left in the game. When you crawl all the way back and then you give one up like that, it can be incredibly deflating. It is incredibly deflating. But the Flyers kept pushing, and eventually, 55 seconds later, they get back within a goal when Joel Farabee on a wrap, and Tippett kind of working on the left side. Tippett feeds it to him behind the net, and as Swayman kind of overplays it on his blocker side, Farabee recognizes that and goes for the wrap on the glove side, knowing that Swayman's not going to be able to get there, and on his way back, he may be able to deflect it off him or angle it off the goaltender and in, and that's exactly what happens. And the Flyers make it 6-5, and now you got 2:04 to go, and you're back within a goal in this wild and crazy third period where we've seen 7 goals scored. Flyers got some more opportunities on Swayman, but unable to beat him, and the final score, 6-5 for the Boston Bruins. So some costly mistakes, the thing we talked about yesterday in this gauntlet that the Flyers have to do better, or it's going to lead to big goals allowed totals like this, like 6 here, and obviously the 6 against the Toronto Maple Leafs and the 7 that they gave up against the Tampa Bay Lightning. The structure's gotta be better, and the structure's five-man unit, um, and you cannot be redundant in certain areas and giving up too much of the middle of the ice. When you look at the heat map of the scoring chances in the game, Boston absolutely attacked the middle of the ice and down low. That's where they like to do business. A lot of backdoor stuff. Saw two of those with the pass from Marchand to Coyle and the power play. They always attack that way, and Flyers just didn't do a good enough job staying in their structure. One of the goals, I think it was the Jake DeBrusk goal, Travis Sanheim got caught chasing the play out too high, and then eventually on the right side is where the goal is scored from, uh, right around the net. 4 of the Boston 6 goals were scored very close in. The other 2 were obviously, the first one scored by Morgan Geekie just inside the top of the circle, and then the Danton Heinen one, the game winner, which was scored just outside the top of the circle. Those are the goals, uh, you'd like to see your goalie come up with a save on. The Geeky one is a slap shot, perfect shot. I I'll forgive that one, but the Danton Heinen one is one that the goaltenders absolutely got to make a save on. And look, they went with Felix Sandstrom in this game. It's another thing we talked about yesterday. Who are they going to go with, Ersson or uh, Felix Sandstrom? They opted to go with Sandstrom because I think they really liked the way that the team responded in that second period of the Toronto game where the Flyers went in down 3-0 and then came out of the period down 3-1. And Felix Sandstrom made some big saves in that period, but um, just a backbreaking goal to give up against Anton Heinen. That's been the one element about Felix Sandstrom that's plagued his NHL viability is giving up that goal that you just can't give up. And there's another example of it. When you look at the 6 goals allowed, to me, this is one of those games that this was one of those wild games where a lot of goals were scored. Jeremy Swayman's one of the top goaltenders in the league, and Flyers put 5 on him. But the backbreaker is one that just absolutely crushes you to come out of this with no points for the Philadelphia Flyers. So they're going to move on, face Toronto coming up on Tuesday, and they got to find a way to turn around. They lost ground because the New York Islanders played yesterday as well. They ended up losing in overtime, but they pick up a point. So that puts them 3 points back now of the Philadelphia Flyers and still with games in hand as well. So it's going to be this is a tough stretch. We knew it would be a tough stretch. They have to get points out of this stretch. And so far in the first 2 games, they haven't done so, and they've given up a total of 12 goals. That's part of the problem. So it's Flyers 76 points through 67 games. The New York Islanders 73 points through 66 games. So 1 game in hand for the Isles. Flyers got to find a way to solve Toronto coming up on Tuesday. One thing real quick, too, that I want to mention about the game before we get to some other things was the player usage in the game I thought was interesting because Sean Couturier was moved up in the lineup. He was moved up onto a line with Travis Konechny and was going to play, and Farabee was going to play with some more offensive players. Well, when it was all said and done, Sean Couturier still only played 11 minutes and 10 seconds in the game. And when you look at the usage in this game, usually he'd be used on some faceoffs a little bit more, uh, but to still only play 11-10, Farabee in the game played 20-31. Konechny in the game played 20-10. Couturier only played 11 minutes and 10 seconds. Only a couple of forward, or maybe one forward, played less minutes than him. Yeah, one forward played less than him, and that was Nick Delarier. Cam Atkinson drew back in the lineup as Garyanov and Brink were out. He played 11-31, had 3 shots on goal, was a -1 and a block shot. But Couturier, only 11 minutes and 10 seconds of ice time for the Flyers. Travis Konechny, like I said, played over 20. Scott Lawton played 17-37. Owen Tippett played 17-50. So just something that really caught my eye. I thought Yegor Zamula played a really good game, played 22-20. I think that Travis Sanheim may be dealing with the flu, but he still played 24-56 in the game. And Cam York, probably a career high, 27 minutes and 18 seconds of ice time. And York, another real good game. 2 assists in the game, +2, a shot on goal, 4 block shots. and a hit as well that he registered. And Cam York continues to really impress, but albeit in a losing effort against the Boston Bruins. Very shocking. Let's get to some tweets that came in upon conclusion of the game. Then we're going to get to some of the reaction to what I talked about yesterday regarding Morgan Frost and kind of the polarization of that player. First Monsoon had tweeted me right at the end of the game. The Flyers had a comeback trait. The first half of the season will be a good time to show it again. They need points. I totally agree, Monsoon. They showed it, but it wasn't enough because of that Heining goal really hurt them and the ability to get all the way back in the game. John Garber tweeted and said, Frosty is making plays and scoring goals beauty. I mean, it wasn't a stunning goal that Morgan Frost scored going through his legs the way he did. And that's a highly confident play to make from Morgan Frost. I thought he did a really good job on the power play as well, kind of in that bumper position with Forster and a one-time shot opportunity, and also Owen Tippett in that. I think that those guys need to be on the side of the ice where they can get the one-timer off and not have to corral a puck. So if you're a right shot, you want to be on the left side. If you're a left shot, you want to be on the right side. To have that stick in the middle of the ice to one-time passes that are sent over for you. Glenn said, for me to call out Torts because it's so visibly obvious that starting Stahl and Eric Johnson is hurting the team. He said they can't skate, they're out of position, and the offense are literally slowing themselves down to help out. He said, hell, put Coots at defense. At least you know he'll be in position. I've seen Sean Couturier defend rush attempts, whether it's in overtime or in other situations, not something you want to do. But as far as Eric Johnson and Mark Stahl, like Stahl had the two mistakes in the game. One, I thought he jumped inside on the power play goal that Coyle scores and then got himself caught up in Travis Konechny. The first one that they scored, the geeky slap shot, I don't understand why he jumped to the middle to kind of prevent DeBrus from driving the net when he had somebody else there. Obviously a mistake. And then Eric Johnson, I didn't think Johnson was bad in the game, but I would ask you, Glenn, who do you want them to put in? As of 3 weeks ago, or if they're healthy, four of the guys that are playing D for them right now are not in the lineup, or at least three. Stahl, Johnson are not in the lineup for sure. And I mean, I don't know who you want them to put in. Ronnie Attard, I thought played decently. I thought Yegor Zamula played decently. But your options are very limited when you've played 14 different defensemen this year, and this is all you have available unless you're going to call up Emil Andre. You don't have unlimited call-ups. You have emergency call-ups, but they have to meet the conditions. And they've already used 3 of the 4 call-ups. I don't think calling up Emil Andre would be a better option right now than one of these guys that's played in these situations. And I don't think that calling up Louis Belpedio would be a better option. So maybe Adam Yinning. Okay. We can make the case there. I thought in the game that he did play, I thought he played well. But when you're 14 deep on your blue line, you don't have a lot of options. I understand that Stahl didn't have a good night and it's hurting the team and it wasn't a good performance by him, but I don't know what else you can do. I don't know what the other options are when you've played 14 different defensemen so far this season. I mean, here's the 14 guys they've played this season. They've played Travis Sanheim. That's one. They played Cam York, Sean Walker, Yegor Zamula, Nick Seeler, Mark Stahl, Jamie Drysdale, Louis Belpedio, Rasmus Ristolainen, Eric Johnson, Emil Andre, Adam Yinning, Ronnie Attard, Victor Mete. That's 14 different D that they have played this year. That's an incredible number. So I don't know what the other option would be for the Philadelphia Flyers to play other D-men. All right, let's get to a couple of these regarding what I asked yesterday about Morgan Frost and the polarization of him. Hostage Joe said, just listen to the latest Flyers Daily. Good episode as always. My comment, not all points are created equal. He said, straight up, one goal is more valuable than one assist simply on the basis that 2 assists are awarded on every 1 goal. First of all, that's not true. Sometimes no assists are awarded on a goal. You can have an unassisted goal. You can also have a single assist on a goal. It doesn't have to be 2 assists. So that's part of it. And you're right. Not all points are created equal. Not all assists are created equal. Sometimes the assist is more important than the goal, than the actual goal, because without the play made by the person setting it up, there is no goal. So I agree to an extent, a very small extent, that you need playmakers. And he is that. Morgan Frost is a playmaker. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Scored a beautiful goal in the game last night. Um, that being said, again, that's the value people see in goal scoring. They see that as, the creme de la creme. Sometimes the playmaker deserves more. I think on my eyes, I believe this, that Claude Giroux was criticized a lot of times because he didn't score enough goals. He wasn't a goal scorer. He was a playmaker. And he is a playmaker that set up a ton of goals. And people would use that. They would say that, oh, he's too many assists. He's just an assist guy or secondary assist. And sometimes the secondary assist is the play that breaks it all open too. They're not all created equal. Fred tweeted me, or rather emailed me at jason.myrtetus@gmail.com. He said, I would like to know the turnover stat on Morgan Frost. He says, it seems to me that he turns the puck over frequently. I think the whole can do better to minimize turnovers, though, as a whole. Your thoughts? I don't see him as a high turnover guy. Creative playmakers will turn pucks over at times because they're using a lot of creativity to make plays, and they will incur some risk. So guys that will drive offense and push the pace and try to break down structure of the opposition and those things, they will turn the puck over. That's because they're not playing safe. I don't look at that as a bad thing. I look at that as a key trait that a guy is trying to push to make things happen. So I don't necessarily look at that as a bad thing. But he will turn pucks over, but every offensive player and guys that push for creative offense will. Ed emailed me and said, hi, I'm a huge Flyer fan since 1973. And this year I've been listening to you daily. You really understand the game and analyze the current situation as well. I appreciate that, Ed. And he said, I totally agree with you about Morgan Frost. I've been watching him regularly from British Columbia and don't understand the scrutiny he gets. Really exciting team to watch now and looking forward to the future. And you're correct. They need to build around the current nucleus of talent and let them learn together. He said, I also think your weekly Hockey and Hounds is a great show and nice to know the team and Torts and the players' perspective. Best regards, Ed from BC. Ed, thanks for the email. And yeah, I mean, look, he's a player that has become incredibly polarizing. And people like to find a way to, with his stats, as I brought up his last 40 games and the numbers he had, 29 points, which was tied with Tippett, and so on and so forth, or tied with Farabee and more than Tippett, and that he was a player that people found a way to discount his production and not use the same argument with some of the other guys. And it's something that I think is worthy of an interesting conversation, to say the least, which is why we're having it. That's what we do on this podcast. A couple of the notes that came in on our YouTube channel in the comments section below. Um, Mark said the Flyers don't have a lot of centers, especially centers with offensive talent. They have hope Frost improves. Frost has improved. Can he get more consistent? Yes. Consistency has been a problem for a lot of the Flyers forwards. Like Joel Farabee had 2 goals in the game last night. He was 20 and 21st, but he's had some inconsistent stretches as well, as is Owen Tippett. And every player is going to go through that, but they have to try and mitigate how long that lasts at any cost. Michael said that Frost needs higher talent around him who can capitalize on his playmaking, and the current young roster will also get better to capitalize on his playmaking. I do agree with that. Talent needs to play with talent most times, and that's a big element for creative playmakers, to have other people that can think the game like they do. That's a big part of it. James messaged in and said Frosty needs to play better on the wall as he never wins a battle for the puck and his defensive game is non-existent. Picks up a lot of secondary assists, but seldom wins one-on-one against opponents when going to the net and never blocks shots, just too soft. Again, I don't agree with you. Is he going to be a guy that's going to go into board battles? I think it's why he's not a winger, because he's not a board battle guy. But as a center, he has block shots, and I think that he has improved in a lot of those areas. Is he going to win a Selkie? No, that's not him. But to say that his defensive game is non-existent, I think his defensive game has improved a ton. Going back to when Mike Yeo was very tough on him, and obviously John Tortorella since he's been here as well. So I think he's going to be a player that's going to continue to be polarizing, and unless he goes out and scores 75 points, I think right now my expectation for him is that he should be somewhere in that 55 to 64 point range at this point in his career. We'll see if he's able to get there and get that done. You look at the player, I think all the skill is there. It's just putting that consistency in with it. And with a lot of people just don't want to give him his due, I think, sometimes, and come up with some pretty outlandish kind of ways of mitigating his numbers, I guess is the best way to put it. When you look at his numbers now on the season, Morgan Frost in 56 games has 11 goals, 25 assists, I believe so, 36 points. So he's got a lot of work to do to get to that even 50-point range. We'll see how it goes. All right, everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Carnival coming up today. Hope to see everybody there. Join us tomorrow, though. We'll have another brand new episode of Flyers. It'll be a Monday with Meltzer. So join us then on a brand new Flyers Daily.